It's very interesting the way the Rebbe is going to put this together. The Rebbe sometimes takes two topics which are like Mizrach L'Mayrav. You'd never think about one is connected to the other topic. And we're going to start off with something that we speak about a lot in this week's Chumash, which is the Tumah of Metzora, the Metzora. And from there, we're going to get into Neidah Shabbos Kodesh. And the Rebbe is going to conclude about how very important it is for even little girls to light Neidah Shabbos Kodesh, not only their mothers, and how he goes from one to the other. It's amazing. And how the Neidah Shabbos Kodesh is something that, like, in a way, is the opposite, the antithesis of the idea of tzaras. So let's see it inside. Min ha-pasuk kol yimei asher ha-nega bo yitma goymer bodod yeshiv mechutz lamachne moishavoi. So it's a very interesting expression. Bodod yeshiv mechutz lamachne moishavoi. Why does he repeat again moishavoi? What's the emphasis with the word moishavoi? Lamadnu sha-moishav sheboi nimtza metzora Tamei afhu. Wherever the Metzora is living, that place that he's living in becomes Tamei with all the vessels inside and so on. What happens if it's not Moishavoi? What happens if a Metzora comes and visits someone else? What happens now to the things in that other person's house? Does it also become Tamei or not? The Mishnah, Kalim miyad Tameim. One opinion holds that anything in the house that is susceptible to becoming Tamei, as soon as a Metzora walks in, it becomes Tamei. Rabbi Yehudah Omer, not immediately, you need to have a little bit of time. Im shaha kedei hadlakas haner. So then, if he spent the amount of time, how much it takes to light a candle, so then the kelim in the house becomes Tamei, but otherwise, if he walked in and he left right away before the chance of lighting a candle, so then he doesn't make anything Tamei. I don't know the shear, but it's obviously it's like a minute or so. It's obviously not a very long shear. What's it talking about over here? And that's why it matters how long it took to light a candle. It's considered his dwelling place, considered his moishav. This is the place that he's at. And therefore, Memela miyad Tameim, Rabbi Yehudah is going to agree to Rachamim that the kelim inside become immediately Tamei if the friend wanted him there, if the friend invited him in. But if he walked in without an invitation, so now you got to give the guy a chance to kick him out. And the time is kedei hadlakas haner. Let's see it inside. Ulefichach nitna lebal habayis shehus, the amount of time kedei hadlakas haner l'shaleach as hametzora min habayis. Aval im sham ad kedei shirzeh v'loy afke, he didn't chase him out. Nas habayis moishavoi shel hametzora kivun shaz nechshav adavar shu nimtza sham b'rshus bal habayis v'akelim shu habayis tamei. Okay, so now the question is, why specifically this shear? There's a lot of shiurim in the Torah, the eating of a kazayis, drinking of a ravias. Why specifically this amount of time of lighting a candle? Vatam sheshir azman shenitin loy hu kedei hadlach saner ki yitachon shabal bayis torud badlach saner mishum kach einu mishalech z'metzora min habayis. How do you know that the balabayis doesn't want this Metzora here? So if it was less time than Adlakas Haner, could be the reason why he didn't express his displeasure, he didn't kick him out, was because he was busy lighting a candle. Because then, if even after that time, the Balabayis did not kick the Metzora out, so then that means the Metzora is there with the Rishus of the Balabayis, and therefore all the Kalim in the house become now Tamei, because the Metzora, it's now considered Moishavoi of the Metzora. Oizbeis. Kol Dover B'Toiro B'Tach Sadiq. Umezeh Shenoktu B'Mishna Satir the Dadlakas Haner Davke. Bein kol shara dvarim shebehem olu balabayis liyis tarud. We're saying the problem is that the balabayis was too busy to kick the Metzora out. Could have found something else. He was busy serving some food. He was busy pouring a cup of wine. Why specifically did he use this type of shear that he was too busy lighting a candle? From this, the Rebbe is going to say there must be a connection between lighting a candle and the tumah in the house that a Metzora brings. It doesn't mean that the owner actually has to be lighting the candle. We don't say like this. If the owner is lighting the candle and he didn't have any time to kick him out, so then it's not my shavi. But if the owner was just sitting around and doing nothing, so it becomes Tamei right away, we don't say that. It's not the actual thing that he was actually busy with it. The hadlok zaner is only an example of the shear of what the person might be busy with, that because of that he can't kick the Metzora out. They didn't light candles during the day in the olden times. These days we have electricity on all day. We have the lights on all day. But in those days, a candlelight is shraga betira mayahani. The candlelight and the daylight had no function. So people didn't light candles during the day. So practically, the actual case of lighting a candle only applied by dark, when it was dark. But the din of Metzora being that shear didn't make a difference any time of day. The ilu shir kedei adlakas haner amar gamba Metzora shnichsla beis chaveri beyoyim. Why? He wasn't busy with adlakas haner, so why are you giving him that extra window of how long it takes to light a candle? The Mefarshim write that we don't make distinctions, and we're going to go ahead and say, if it was during the day, then immediately the house becomes Tamei. If it's during the night, so then it's going to be Kedei Adlak Saner. Then you're going to start asking what happens if it was like Bein HaShemoshes or this or that. So therefore they made a shear across the board. It's called loy plug. We don't make any distinctions. Under all circumstances, we say that it's the shear of Adlakas Haner, that if the Metzora was in the house less than the shear of Adlakas Haner, so then the things in the house doesn't become Tamei, according to Rabbi Yehudah. If it was Adlakas Haner shear, so then it becomes Tamei, no matter what time of day this was. Therefore, Beruchnius comes out, Muvan, Sheashaych has been Inyan Hadlakas Haner, Letoichen Divrei HaMishnah Kan, She'ad Shir Ze Ein HaKelim She'abayis Tamei. So now, the Rebbe is going to bring from his father. The Rebbe's father was a Makubal and used to bring everything down in Kabbalah and Kabbalah language. So the next piece is going to be very much Kabbalah, but it's not blow your mind type of Kabbalah. It's things that, especially if you learned a little bit Chassidus, it's going to be familiar. And my father, in other words, Rebbe Levik, Schneers explained in his notes on this above-mentioned Mishnah, Bayis Hainusfiras HaMalchus, the level of a house that corresponds to the sphere of Malchus Lamaila. V'sibas Tumah of Metzora, he mitzad histalkus oir ha'chochma. Just like a Metzora in the physical sense, what happens is the skin turns pale. In the physical sense, why does the skin turn pale? Because there's something wrong with the circulation. The less circulation, the whiter the skin is. The more circulation, the redder the skin is. So the fact that he's a Metzora, that shows that there's missing circulation. Al pi Kabbalah, which particular circulation is he missing? He's missing the light of Chochmah. The oil of Chochmah is what is missing. It's brought down, the Chazal say that someone's a Metzora is considered like he's dead, because we know Chochmah is the source of Chayis, and we say by a Metzora he's missing the circulation of Chochmah, so therefore he's like he's dead. Valkain, the Rebbe's father goes on to explain. Calls man shabalabayis torud bad lokas haner asher had lokas haner hu amshochas oira Chochmah. A candle, top of page 142, a candle is also about drawing down the Chochmah. Just the opposite than the Metzora. The Metzora is about the Oira Chachma left, lighting the candle is the Amshach of the Oira Chachma. Hadover ma'akiv es ispashtus tumas ha-Metzora babayis. Val derech mashataras ha-Metzora hi idea koyin davke. It says, why does a Metzora need to have a koyin to proclaim that he's tahir? If a koyin doesn't proclaim him tahir, even if the simonim leave, he doesn't stop becoming Tamei. Why? Because the koyin also has to do with the spiritual circulation, with bringing down the oil. V'huva l'koyin v'yatza koyin goymer l'ficha koyin hu ha'mamshachas oira chachma k'mevurabel k'tei Torah. This is explained in k'tei Torah on Parshas Metzora about this, and Parshas Tazri'a, Parshas Metzora. So, in other words, the hadlakas haner, the Rebbe is now connecting, based on what his father says, that the hadlakas haner prevents the Tumah of the Metzoras to come into the house. That's why, of all the types of shiurim that there could be for how long the Metzora is in the house, he uses specifically hadlakas haner, because beruchnis and yonim, hadlakas haner shows I'm drawing down the oira chachma. The Metzora is because there's a problem with the circulation of the oira chachma. So when you have the duration of time that it takes to light a candle, that prevents the Tumah of the Metzora to come into the house. Now a very practical question. Halafilu kasher balabayis torud badlokas haner adayin ein hatir da koi gdoila ad shelo yuchol b'shas ma'ase gufa letzaves ala Metzora sheyetz min habayis. He's lighting a candle, so he could say to the guy, "Get out!" You know, he can't talk when he's lighting the candle. He's lighting the candle. He says, "I don't want you here. Get out of here." What's stopping him? He's torud badlokas haner. He's preoccupied with lighting a candle. What's the preoccupation? He can't stop. What's he holding in middle of davening? He can't talk out. It's in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei. What's the problem over here? V'ateret hamuval kachum sheshir kedei adlokas haner ha'amur kan hainu adlokas haner the Beit Shimshi, when the sun's going down, adlokas ner is Shabbos kodesh. They're holding in the middle, lighting the Shabbos candles. Asher ba ein bal bayis yochel lahafsik al mnas letzavas hal Metzora lotzis min habayis umeachar shebe Beit Shimshi dor shir kazeh, to light the Shabbos candles takes that amount of time of adlokas haner. Nikva was established not only on Friday night, but even on a simple Wednesday, it'll be the same din. Nikva shagam b'sharim moisa shavua hashir hu k'dei adlokas haner mitzad loy plug. Just like we said before, that because of loy plug, we don't care if the Metzora entered by night or the Metzora entered by day. The same thing, because of adlokas haner and Shabbos, he couldn't stop in middle of lighting Shabbos candles to tell the Metzora to go out. What about on Wednesday? What about a Sunday night? What about Motzei Shabbos? We don't care. Once we already established the shir, because he might be busy with adlokas haner on Friday night that he can't stop to kick the Metzora out. So like plug, we say all the time, whenever the Metzora comes in, the shir of adlokas haner is what stops it. So now, just like before we brought from the Rebbe's father, that the spiritual idea of adlokas haner stops the spiritual problem of the Tumah Saras, so we must say that since the issue over here is adlokas haner of Shabbos, so there must be something about the spiritual thing of Shabbos candles that undoes and prevents the Tumas Metzora in the house as well. Last paragraph on the first column. Well, according to my father's explanation, Shetam Shir Kedei Adlokas Haner, Hu Lefi Adlokas Haner Ma'akeves Es Tumas HaMetzora, Tzarech Loymar Sha'akoyach HaMa'akev Es Tumas HaMetzora Ba Be'ikir Mitzad Adlokas Haner the Beit Shimshi. In other words, the Shabbos candles. Sha'arei Ikrei Shel Hashir Neveh Ma'adlokazu. So the Rebbe is going to want to know, what is the connection? What is it specifically about Shabbos candles that somehow prevents and stops the Tumah Saras to come into the house when the Metzora walks in? We're not talking about how the Metzora himself becomes Tamei, how the Metzora himself stops the Tumah from coming to him. Ela betumas Metzora hamispashetas babayis. Here we're worried not about the Metzora. The Metzora is already Tamei. Here we're concerned what happens when the Metzora walks into a house. What happens to that house? V'lachein hadover shaykh beikir ladlokas neiris the Beit Shimshon shekein neiris Shabbos Kodesh nivdolim mishara neiris bekach she'in yonam hu sholem bayis. The Chazal say that why was the mitzvah of adlokas neiris established? Because since on Shabbos you can't light a fire, so go sit in the dark. The tzdukim used to sit in the dark on Friday night. He says, no, we don't want a person eating their Shabbos meal in the dark because it's going to bring to the opposite of Shalom Bayis. Shema yikoshel ba'etz ba'evan. We're still going to bring that expression. The person might trip, and there's going to become a fight and a whole heder of Shalom Bayis. So therefore, Neiris Shabbos Kodesh was established for Shalom Bayis. This is brought down halacha. It has certain hashlochas and halacha, the fact that's because of Shalom Bayis, and therefore takes precedence over other types of candles, or a person can't afford money for Shabbos candles and other things, because Shalom Bayis is a very great thing. So therefore, hey me'irim es habayis shelo yikoshel ba'etz ba'evan. What does that mean? Hainu shem shoymrim ala bayis v'nei murois biltu ritzuyim. V'lachein neiris elu gam poilim ala bayis sha'atuma lo tispashit boi. Just like it stops it from like koshel ba'etz ba'evan, stops things that are against Shalom Bayis, it also stops the Tumah, as we will soon explain why it stops the Tumah of Tzaras. Ois Dalit. Avladayin after lishol akach Shalom Bayis shaydei ner Shabos nifol b'emtzois ha'iragashmi. And the truth is, v'lachura kol ner doluk gamim eina ner mitzvah meir sabayis shlo yikoshel ba'etz ba'evan. Umeiv ha'idei zabel Shalom Bayis v'im kein mawa yisran shall adlokas haneris the Beit Shimshon ad shall adlokas udavke hiya ikar ba'agonus habayis mipnei hepach shalom or melam nei spashas hatuma. We finished saying before that it's Shabbos candles, that's the source and the core reason that prevents the Metzora from bringing his negative tumah into the house. But it doesn't have to be Shabbos candles. Any candles prevents things of Shalom Bayis. Prevents that should be lo yikoshel ba'etz ba'evan. Therefore, any candle should have that power of pushing off the tumah of the Metzora. Why do we say no? It's not in Pnimis and Yonim, according to Ruchnis and Yonim, that it has to be Neiris Shabbos specifically that has the power to push away the tumah of the Metzora. So the Rebbe says, first of all, Ach be'emes, Eine Kain, last paragraph on this page. Oir stam she'ene koshel oneir mitzvah, ein vados tamid she'yasibel l'shalom. Uleitim, you're talking gam lahepach. Sometimes a person could see things which are going to bring to the opposite of Shalom Bayis. Tachas ha'oir, efshel lahavchin lefamim ba'adam, or be'ezeh tnua v'kav ba'adam, she'i efshel lizbel. That if you wouldn't have the candle there, you wouldn't have noticed. You got this rip in your shirt. What did you do? Why were you running around with your Shabbos pants and now you tore your new Shabbos? Whatever. But the dafke ha'oir amiti. Ha'oir shall name mitzvah v'toira oir. Asher kol ha'toira nitna l'asa shalom ba'olam. Hu hasiba amitis hamavia b'vadois achtus v'shalom shalom bayis. So it's not just enough, and this is also, it can be brought down as the reason why Lepoil, we don't just rely on the fact we have electric lights. These days we have electricity in the house. Why light Shabbos candles? We're anyway going to have electricity, so you have to be worried about Shlei Koshel Be'etz Ba'evan. You're not going to have the Koshel Be'etz Ba'evan. But you want to also have the spiritual benefit. You want to have the spiritual benefit of bringing Shalom into the house. Shalom is brought about when you have the oir, when you have the neir connected with mitzvah. Because when the neir is connected with the mitzvah, so then the spiritual thing comes down into the physical as well. And instead of the physical oir sometimes being a reason for negativity, it's only for the positive. Oisei. Kala amur hu bir hashayches shel neiris Shabbos kodesh le'inyan hispashas shel kol sug tumah babayis. Av mezeh shashir kidei adlok saneh. Hu v'lgabe Tumah of Metzora. Move on. Shashmira mepnei Tumah chamura zu of the Metzora, which is one of the most severe Tumahs. Yesh lo shayches miyuchedes l'neiros Shabbos kodesh. So he says, "B'pashtus yesh loymar achas hasibas l'tzaras hi lashon hara." Because the person was chas v'shalom speaking about another yid, gossiping, which is inyan shel pirid alavavas, just the opposite of shalom bayis. V'lachein hatikun lakachu aydei neiros Shabbos kodesh davke shein yonam hu shalom bayis kanal. So here we see the way the Rebbe puts together two faraway things. Metzora is period al-Vavas, the opposite of Avos Yisrael. Neiros Shabbos Kodesh, Neshek, is about Shalom Bayis. To undo the effects of the Metzora, you need to have Neiros Shabbos Kodesh. That is, like he says, B'pashtus. Now he's going to bring it on a deeper spiritual level as well. V'abir b'zeva pnimis en yonim, yuvim b'hagdim divrei Chazal, harogil b'neir havyin leibonim talmidei chachamim. It says someone that is accustomed to use candles for a mitzvah. Later we're going to see it's talking about Neiros Shabbos and also Neiros Chanukah. So this will bring about that his children will be talmidei chachamim. They will learn Torah, they will do mitzvahs, they will be observant Yidden, and so on. Pirish Rashi, why? What's the connection between lighting candles and having children that are following Torah mitzvahs? T'chsiv ki ner mitzvah v'Torah oyer, which means Rashi explains ayidei ner mitzvah. What neiros of mitzvah? There's the mitzvah of Shabbos and there's the mitzvah of Chanukah. So the result is ba'or the Torah. So therefore, the mezem move on. Afal pichaner mitzvah koyal kol mitzvah ki kol mitzvah shemakayim mod mefitza or boy ba'atzmei boyum shesvivoy. In truth, the term ner mitzvah is telling us that mitzvah's b'chlal is like a candle. So every mitzvah is like a ner. Every mitzvah spreads light around it. Mikol makim yesh befrat ze yisron b'mitzvah sakshuras gam begashmius l'ner. So even though all mitzvahs are considered a ner, but it's even more powerful in those mitzvahs that are actually using a ner gashmi, because then the spiritual light of the mitzvah and the physical light of the mitzvah are connected. Shara mitzvahs, kivin shah ner mitzvah shebehem hu oiruch nibel vad ein lo yashpa begoli al gashmi sa'olam. Mash'enkim mitzvahs elum kivin shah ner mitzvah shebehen kosher l'ner gashmi hariyah pu'ula shah oir ruchni ner mitzvah hi ba'oifen shah oir ba begili begashmi sa'olam. So when we have the ner of Shabbos Kodesh lighting our home, it's not just physical light. In that physical light is being expressed and being manifest the spiritual light of a mitzvah. Whereas, let's say, when I'm putting on film, of course, I have the Neir mitzvah, but it's all spiritual. You don't see any physical light coming off of the film. I met someone in Russia that told a friend of mine, he was a very spiritual type of guy, and he was looking at the mezuzah. He was telling my friend, he's saying, "Don't you see the energy that's coming off of this mezuzah?" You know, it takes a very spiritual type of person that went through all the difficulties in Russia to keep mitzvahs. He would see something like that. But for us, to see the spiritual light in the physical, we need actual physical mitzvahs that are connected with light, like Neiros Shabbos Kodesh. Oizvav. Al pizeh yuvnu divrei haGemara oides haneir hamaravi shebeis hamikdash. In the menorah, there was a candle that was called Ner HaMaravi. There's different explanations what that means, the Ner HaMaravi exactly. And it said about that candle that it was different than all the other candles. He's going to say it in a moment. That candle, miraculously, was the first one that was lit and was the last one that went out. Constantly, consistently. Whichever candle it was either the middle candle or the second from the end. And that candle had an interesting thing. Eidos hi leboy olam shashchina shoyra b'Yisrael ayidei hanes shahaya ben Ner HaMaravi memena haya madlik abo haya Messiah. So the Rebbe is going to ask a very simple thing. There was a lot of nisim that took place in the Beis HaMikdash, as he's going to mention in a moment. Of all the nisim that took place in the Beis HaMikdash, why specifically is the nest that took place with the Neir Amaravi and the Menorah, that's called the Eidasi L'chol Boi Olam Shashchina? And what about the other miracles that took place? Of all the miracles, it's the only one that you found that could be an Eidasi L'chol Boi Olam? The L'chura in a move on, Hallel Beis HaMikdash Nasu Nisim Rabim, Kedivra HaMishnah, Asara Nisim Nas Lavaseinu Beis HaMikdash. Vim kein man nishtan an neis ner amaravim mishar kol anisim shehu davke shimesh eidus shashchina shoyre b'Yisrael. And even more so, where was the ner amaravi located? Not in a place where everybody went in, not in a place where everybody saw. You say to Mezum Mekayim HaMenorah hu b'heichel v'sham guf aloi ba'ulam el v'machma nikra kodesh. And you couldn't walk in. Stam azay, anybody cannot walk into the kodesh. Ain't kol adam nichnas l'sham. Only the koyanim could go into the place that was called the kodesh. V'ilu bein asara nisim yesh gam nisim shoyu tamid ba'azara. There were other nisim that were, let's say, over the mizbeach. The mizbeach hachitzim was in the azara. The azara, anybody can go in. There were different sections, but you could see that nest. Everybody could see that nest. Like it says, nobody ever said that the place that I stayed over in Yerushalayim was uncomfortable, was not enough room for me. And this was a nest that was felt in the entire Yerushalayim. So if you're going to bring a miracle, if you can bring a nest, that's going to be an Eidus L'chol Boi Olam, bring a nest that everybody's seeing. Vim kein echav shaloi mar shadafkin nesanei amaravi shoy b'toch hakodesh heyid leboi olam. Boi olam means all the inhabitants of the world. Shashchina shoyre b'Yisrael el shabir bezehu kanal me'acha shoyre l'kisha b'nei amaravi yorad v'nimshach gam ba'or gashmi hoysa lo yashpa chazaka ba'aras ha'olam ha'gashmi yoyser Masher l'shara inyonim v'anisim shu beis hamikdash. V'lechein hazeh davke ishpiya upol eidus al boi olam she'akiru shashchina shoyre b'Yisrael, because the light of the Shechina was expressing itself in a physical light, and therefore it had a stronger influence on the world. Val Pisa move on, yeah. Which miracle are you talking about, the Eish HaMizbeach? So again, it wasn't, first of all, it wasn't the gather of the oil. It wasn't about the oil. It wasn't the light. It was the fact that it was burning up. Not every time when you have food burning up in the fire do you see the fire. So the oil part was not that much nicker. Valpiza move on gam shesh mailam yuchedes b'nei Shabbos kodesh. Al kol ha-Torah nemar, kol ha-Torah nitna las sholem ba'olam. Hainu shayidei kol ha-Torah nasa sholem ba'olam. Aval zeu be'ikir sholem beruchnis. Masha enkim b'nei Shabbos kodesh, ha-sholem ha-niflal yodam, ba'ol idei bitui v'gilui, gam b'sholem bayis kipshutai. Literally, it was made so that the people in the house should have a peaceful, nice Shabbos meal. Harei ze gufa meichiach shebemitzvah zu hasholom ba'olam hu b'toikif yoser, just like the Neir Amarav in the Beis HaMikdash brought the gilui of the Oir Eliki shashchina shoyre b'Yisrael l'chol ba'olam. Ulhoir shamayim kol Torah nitna las sholom ba'olam huve b'sefer Rambam behemshach l'inin sholom bayis haba de Neir Shabbos. So we see there's specifically a connection with Torah being lasas sholom ba'olam with the mitzvah of Neir Shabbos that was there for sholom. So he says, what's the connection between kol ha-Torah was given lasas sholom ba'olam being beruchnis, and then by neshek it's begashmis? Ech da pirush b'mayim kol Torah nitnas lasas sholom ba'olam hu mitziyuso ya'amitis sholo olam hi elikus. Ukamash bevay rabbeinu azakim betanya bariches in sharichot v'amuna sha'akiyum sheyesh lo olam hu ha'idei zeh sha'kadosh baruch hu mahave oisei b'chol rega v'rega ma'ayin liyesh. Hashem has to bring the world into existence every moment. El shema'achar sha'akoyach halaki poel ba'olam ba'ifim nistar, we can't see it. L'chein ha'olam nira la'ayin kimitzias b'fnei atzma. Like Avram Avinu said, looked around, he said, this big building, nobody's running. So nobody's running it. That's the same way. The world is the whole time being created by Hashem, but nobody sees it. They limit our Torah v'kiyum mitzvahs, nasis mitzias ha'olam mu'eres. B'dugmas hatzitzol of Balabira. It says that Hashem glanced at Avraham Avinu. He glanced at him, and then Avraham Avinu recognized, there's something more going on in the world. There is a power in this world that's making the world exist. And that same process happens whenever we do a mitzvah. Doesn't make a difference whichever mitzvah. Any mitzvah. Or by learning Torah, we are revealing the true existence of this world, the true being of this world, that's Elikus. Nitna means kan lemata b'olam hazeh. The malachim wanted to have the Torah. We said no, they don't get it. It has to be given down here into this world. Hu kidei lasis shalom ba'olam. How do you have peace in the world? When you have peace between the world and Hashem. The world without Torah mitzvahs looks like it's the opposite of Hashem. There's Hashem, but it has nothing to do with the world. It's a battle between them. But through Torah mitzvahs, we cause sha'koil yiru v'yakiru sha'olam eina menagid lelakus. V'yiseirim azu tachlisa yuliyas dirla yizbarach aydei terasam avidasam she'Yisrael. So now he's going to bring this back to Neir Shabbos. Ois ches. Ume'atum uvenes gam ha'maylam yuchedes b'Neir Shabbos kodesh. Shebehem inyan ha'sholem ba'olam hu b'toikev yoser kanal sivav ki inyan ha'sholem ba'olam Ha're'iyah va'hakara sha'amitis metzias ha'olam hi'alakus nifelas ha'idei Neir Shabbos kodesh b'yeser seis b'shar mitzvahs. U'ked'isa b'zoyar ki Neir mitzvah. So the Zohar says, when the pasuk says ki Neir mitzvah v'Torah, what's the Neir mitzvah going on? My Neir mitzvah? This is Neir Shabbos. The Zohar openly says that when it says Neir mitzvah v'Torah, who's the Neir mitzvah that's talking about? Neir Shabbos. B'Neir Shabbos kodesh inyan Neir mitzvah ha'oras ha'olam hu b'toikev yoser ma'asher b'shar ha'mitzvahs afilu ba'elu ha'meskaimus b'Neir gashmim. Yes, Loimar. Shezeu atama primi lekach shebe'inyan shalom bayis hanifal ha'idei Neir Shabbos nemra haloshen shlo yikoshel be'etzei be'evan. Ma'u adiuk etzei evan. He could have just said shlo yikoshel. He shouldn't trip. Does it make a difference? Maybe he's tripping over his kids' toys. Why does the Chazal have to type it out with these words etzei evan? Tripping over a chair, he's tripping over the table. Well, what's making a difference what he's tripping over? He shouldn't trip. Why bring in eitz heaven? Al yesh b'kach rembes lepasik oimrim le'eitz aviata ule'evan atya liditani. Yirmiyahu Hanavi says that the Yidden turned wood and stone into avodah zarah, and they said, the wood, this piece of wood that they made into an avodah zarah. You're my father. You gave birth to me. So he says, "Min ha'etzay even nasis avodah zarah rachman l'tzlan. V'zoy pulasum shel Neir Shabbos kodesh shelo yikoshel ba'etzay be'evan mitzias ha'etz v'evan tzad atzmam beterem himuarim b'dei Neir Shabbos yichoyla le'itim lahachshel chas shalmas ha'adam v'ligrem loy lachshiv sheyesh lam la'etzay le'evan chas shalmas mitzias m'shalahem." Koyach Mishalem. Ad sheyikara le'etz avi v'yomer le'evan atila detani mitzias shal avoda zarach man l'tzlan. So in other words, eventually the world can become so dark that even they're going to call a piece of wood avoda zarah. They're going to call a piece of stone avoda zarah. Achai dei oirim shal Neir Shabbos kodesh shar Neir mitzvah up'ula shalom ba'olam shebehem mashpiyim ba'ifin goli b'gash b'sa'olam Muftach shelo yikoshel be'etzay be'evan. Why? Because we said before, you're showing that the world is Holocaust. If you know that the world is Holocaust, you'll never come to bow down to Eitzer Evan. כי על יודם נראה וניכר שהעץ ואבן וכן כל מציא שבעולם מונהגים ביד בעל הבירה, ותכליסם היא להשתמש בהם גוף על עניין של קדושה. על פי כל נעל יובן, גם הקשר המיוחד שבין התרה מתומס מצוירה לנרס Shabbos Kodesh. The reason why we brought all of this about is to understand, al pi pnimis in Yonim, according to Ruchnius, the connection between not becoming affected by the Tumah of Metzora and specifically the mitzvah of Neiris Shabbos Kodesh. Tumah of Metzora, imat Tumah hachamuras b'yois, like we said before. V'lachein din ha-Metzora hu, bodod yeshiv m'chutz l'machlim b'shavit. There's all types of Tumahs. None of the Tumahs is so severe. Even Tumah's mess, even somebody comes in contact with a dead body, it doesn't say that he has to sit alone. A Metzora has to be alone even amongst other Metzoraim. They can't gather together. Yes, l'shalchoi mechutz l'shalosh machnis. Ubezeh gufe bodod yeshiv, shelo yehu tmeim acherim yeshvim imay. Mekoymay shal ha-Metzora, hu af mechutz l'machnis shar tmeim hainu sheyoytze l'gamri machre d'kedushin. Actually, I don't remember if he's not allowed to be around other Metzoraim, but he's not allowed to be around other ones that are Tamei. Actually, in the Haftorah, it speaks about there was the Dalet Metzoraim over there in the story in Tanakh. But Tamadavar, what's so terrible that he has to be completely ostracized, completely removed, even from other people that are Tamei? How come? Because Lashon Hara has a problem b'yoseh goyrim l'bnei adam Lashon HaRambam ledaber belekim v'koifrim be'ikir. Asher ideize nasa adam rachman l'slan nifred legamri ma'kadosh baruch hu. A lot of people talk about Lashon Hara. The Rambam gives a very basic problem with Lashon Hara. When a person starts gossiping, so eventually they start saying, why did God do this? And God is not involved, whatever. So this is the big problem and how terrible Lashon Hara is. In other words, it's very related to what we said before about the Eitz Ve'evan, the Avodah Zarah. So the Metzora is like on the road to Avodah Zarah. V'lchein menias hispashtus shel Tumah kazu yaidein neiris Shabbos Kodesh dafka, like we said before. Mitzad goyd lashba'asam pulasam al gash misoilam. Kach sheim dafka maftichim shlo yikashol be'etz ve'evan, that we said before. What's the Eitz and Evan talking about? It's talking about the Eitz and Evan of Avodah Zarah. Inu shel Avodah Zarah rachman l'tzlan kanal barucha. V'alkein heim ha-meganim mepnei Tumas ha-Metzora shayeches l'chet ha-goyrim l'daber belekim v'koifrim be'ikir. Neshek, Neiris Shabbos Kodesh, is the total opposite of what the Metzora is about. Al pi bir amur ba'arois, according to what the Rebbe's father explains in his notes, Inyan hadlokas haneir hu al derech taras ha-Metzora de ha-koyin kanal sif beis. We said before, the koyin draws down the oira chachma, and the hadlokas Neiris Shabbos is also about the drawing down the oira chachma, which the Metzora was missing, we said. V'gam prat zeh muvim binyanein. Koicham shal Neiris Shabbos Kodesh einerak la'akev es yispashas Tumas ha-Metzora. You know what? When you're lighting the Shabbos candles, that holds back. It doesn't allow the Tumah of Metzora to come in. It's more than that. Elagam yisera mezu lahashir es ha-kelim b'ta'arosam et-Tumas ha-Metzora. Ukemoi b'dugmasam tarai de ha-koyin. What happens when the koyin is metayr the Metzora? He's taking away the Tumah. He's not just preventing Tumah from expanding, he's removing the Tumah. Nifal bahem al derech in eshap chashoichel and hoira. It's affected in the Metzora, the transforming darkness to light. Zdoinus naslik yizachis. Even Avedas turn into mitzvahs. Hainush mibodad yeshiv. Top of 146 v'goyim. Hamoira al tachos ha'yirida kanal siftes. Nasa bodad yeshiv l'mal yusam. The Tzemach Tzedek on Eicha says there's a positive. It says Eicha Yoshua bodad, which is a negative. But everything that we know is spoken about in the negative has the positive that it can be turned into. So the Tzemach Tzedek in Eicha says on the pasuk Eicha bodad, Eicha Yoshua bodad, he says that there's a level of bodad alone which is a mile higher than everything, and that's why it's bodad. Hein am levadad yishkoin. There's a nation that dwells apart. They are removed and beyond all the foolishness of the world. And betach bada den Yankov, same thing, being alone, tachlos habracha. So the same thing, the kohen transforms the bada yeshiv mechutz lamachna of the Metzora to a positive bada. Geen gamen negel choysh chagolos. Befrat choysh chakafel am chupel shebedar dik v'sner shichem. Shai de oir ner Shabbos kodesh no ir es choysh chagolos v'nevatloi v'yiseirem ezu. And the Gia Legula, Lebinyan Beis Hamikdash, and Maralachem Neder Shel Tzion, V'yikuyim Hayiyud, V'hayil Lecha Hashem La'ir Olam, Ad Asher Choshech, Hagolus Atzma Yehafich La'ir, V'laylach Hayom Yair. So now the Rebbe is going to bring this down to one of the miftzoim that the Rebbe always pushed a lot, the idea of mitzvah neshek. Not just to getting adult women or married women to light Shabbos candles, but even young girls starting from 3 or even younger, every single Jewish girl should light Neder Shabbos Kodesh. And this is important to counter all the possible tumas that there are in the world. Mikol now moving shebizmaneinu zeh kasher choshech ha'olam gadol v'av kol kach nachutz b'miyuchad shekol bas Yisrael. Gam bechugim elu shebehem nogu abonus ad ato lahaskal bad lokas haner rak nachal nesuyeyem v'adas ha'yoytzis yidei chavosam bad lokas ner ha'idei imay. Even there were many communities that their minhag was only the mother lit the Shabbos candles, the daughters did. So the Rebbe said, because the darkness these days in Golus is so powerful, so we need to, even in those communities, affect that they should become transformed as well. I actually happened to see a video this week. Someone sent me a video where there was a Chassid Nalav Lubavitch group that came to the Rebbe. Whatever, he was asking a bracha for his meisid, and then his wife had a meisid, and then his daughter was with him, and he said something about her being sick. I don't know the details of the story. The Rebbe asked, is she lighting Shabbos candles? So the father said, no, but if the Rebbe will say, I'll tell her to. Well, so the Rebbe gave her an extra dollar, and said this is for Shabbos candles, and the Shabbos candles will bring, I think the Rebbe said, a healing or whatever, and kach havid, she was taka healed. I don't know, again, the details of the story, just someone sent me the kids of the video. So take if mishtagia lechinuch. Immediately at that time, she should start lighting Shabbos candles. That's what it means. Tadlik ner ba'atzma. V'oiroi shel ner Shabbos yachad im habracha shtevarech alav yoir los chayeha, the chayim of this girl. Ladas v'liskar k'vi she'emeres b'berchasa sh'HaKadosh Baruch Hu melech ha'olam. V'zai tischazek havados shekasher tagia lepirka v'tinasei, when it comes time for her to get married, yikuyim ba havaya lecha la'oir olam ubetafkida ka'keres habayis tivne v'takim as beis al piratzoyin havaya yisoida Torah and Mitzvos. Because of all those years that she lit Shabbos candles, she knew about the idea of lighting up the house. V'tam noisav l'mechitzos Shabbat lokas neiris avur kol b'nei Yisrael ka'amar le'el sifhei Hazor b'ner Shabbos zoichel bonim v'chasanim, the Mefarshim say Talmidei Chachamim. Ubechein b'shonim ha'koyd kadmonius haseda ragel hayom sha'hoyrim ha'yakoyvim es hashidduch avur Abbas. You know, two parents got together, said, I have a son, you have a daughter, we'll make the shidduch. So, who had to make sure that the son-in-law or was a Torah observant Jew that learned Torah and so on? The parents took care of it. So the parents lit the Shabbos licht. Memela gam kana ikar is chus ner Shabbos shal aim shal yod is chusa shal yod is zachsa shebita tunasel tamid chacham. Aval bizmaneinu that it doesn't work that way. Sheduchim are not decided by the parents. Kasher mitzad sibis shoynes haseder anog bepoilu beinim nirtze beinim lav sheis hashiduch avur atzma kevas beikar Abbas azay darush beyeser says shehi atzma tadlik ner Shabbos. V'aner mitzvah shetadlik yishamish l'zchus l'nosel tamid chacham, a Torah observant Jew, somebody learns Torah and does mitzvahs. U'b'yameinu eila kasher afilu bati Yisrael akshedim ein vados gemura shetia lahoyrim deya machras etzel bitam l'kshetigdal יש להתאמץ, להשתדל ביותר, שתזכור מוקדם ככל האפשר, היינו תקף משתגיע לגיל החינוך להדלקת נר שבס קודש, להדליק נר בכל ערב שבס וערב יום טוב, והדבר יחזק גם הסבתחת התורה לגדלה, לתורה לחופל המעשים טובים, שתנסו את המלחכה. לחיים.